every one of us living today, we met this earth, we met it here. They have been farming before we came for thousands of years. Farmers have farmed. They've ate their produces on earth. And they didn't need to change the genetical constituents of their food at any point in generation except this generation. The question is why? We've always had food growing in our countries. Growing up, we'll take bean seeds, we'll drop them behind our houses, we see them sprouting. We take maize, the dried maize, we plant them everywhere. Our soil has been arable. Subsistence farming has always existed with us in Africa, in Nigeria particularly. So at what point did the need arise for us to begin to have genetically modified foods? Many generations have come before us. And yes, we've improved farming, we've come up with machines and all to make it richer, easier, and faster. But the emergence of genetically modified food begs the question, why? And why at this time? And more importantly, who are the proponents of this ideology? Because, if you tell me that for instance, you tell me today that you are a native doctor. I mean, those who use the diabolic ones. And I visit you. I'll be very careful to drink water in your house. True? I'll be very careful too. So if today somebody who is very interested in depopulating the world, in similar forums like this, has said it, that he doesn't mind reducing the world's population to whatever it is, now offers me food to eat, I'll be very careful. Yes or no? As long as the earth has existed, there's been seed time and harvest. Now, if some individuals are coming to meet us to tell us today that the harvests are not enough, so if at a point they come to say to us that they want to start adjusting our food for us to eat, then I'd like to be a stakeholder in the process. Genetically modified foods means you are injecting new codes. You are altering the very essence of life. I'm a programmer. There are files that we write instructions on web pages. Then if you change any single code on the web page, it gives you a different output. Now if you go into the very essence, now first of all, they didn't write those codes there. They all met it. There is nobody will say he wrote the first code on anybody's gene. Science evolved till finding out that the very essence of life is in the chromosomes, in the genome. Now, you met it there. You decide to change it. On whose authority? And how smart are you? Are you going to be changing it to improve it? And how are we sure what you're doing is actually an improvement? If you're writing instructions if you're writing new instructions in the genome of humans and animals, and they're going to behave or give you a different outcome, who decides the outcome? Who decides the instructions that are being embedded inside the plant? Then you have these new crops that when you plant them, you have instructed those crops that they would not grow when they produce new fruits. And then I have to come back to you for the seeds. That's not viable. Does mankind know enough to adjust the genetic instructions that you meet in the genome of plants? And do you trust who is writing these new instructions? And how do you verify what instructions have been written? There are a lot of questions about GMO on the internet, and I wouldn't be the one to read it to you. I would like to show you some of them. As far back as year 2000, there was a study that was released, actually being suppressed on the internet today. I'd like to have it. The title of the article is genetically modified corn said to stop man from spreading his seed. This article was written more than 22 years ago. And it says that scientists have created genetically modified crops and they called it contraceptive corn. Waving fields of maize may one day save the world from overpopulation. The pregnancy prevention plants are the handiwork of the San Diego biotechnology company called Epicite, where researchers have discovered a rare class of human antibodies that attack sperm. By isolating the genes that regulate the manufacture of these antibodies and putting them into corn plants, the company have created tiny horticultural factories that make contraceptives. You have a hotbed filled with corn plants that make anti-sperm antibodies, said the president of Epicite. That's the company. This happened 22 years ago. So how are we very sure that this is not what is being brought into our country? The very next maize I want to eat, I'm buying a corn from the woman on the road. How am I very sure that that is not what is there? I want to read something else to you. It says, "Save Mexico's traditional corn." And it has certain states in Mexico have banned the planting and cultivation of genetically modified corn from the United States in recent years in order to preserve the heirloom varieties of corn that have existed in Mexico for 1,000 years. In 2022, Mexico proposed a ban on the importation of genetically modified corn as a country, and now the US and Canada are teaming up to protest to try and force Mexico to keep importing the genetically modified corn. The reason we're having to bring these things up is because every man has the right to choose. He has the right to choose what he wants to eat. I want to read from a book titled GMOs, Consumerism and the Global Politics of Biotechnology. I'm going to read from the book. Okay, let's have this video. Thank you.
Severe implications for human health due to my research. We have demonstrated.
So I guess my first question is, as a scientist and as the lead author of this 2-year study, do you think there are implications for human health from GMOs?
Of course, I think there are severe implications for human health due to my research. We have demonstrated clearly that in males, especially livers and kidneys were reached at a very high level. Kidneys were also rich in females, but females were prone to big mammary tumors.
The first signs of health effects occurred in the 4th and 5th months, results that 3-month studies would have never seen. At 14 months, 10 to 30% of treated females developed tumors. There were no tumors in the control group. At 24 months, 50 to 80% of females had up to 3 tumors per animal. The groups treated with Roundup showed the greatest rates of tumors at 80%. Pituitary glands in females were the second most affected. The androgen and estrogen balance in serum was modified by both the GMO corn and Roundup treatments. In males, the liver, hepatodigestive tract, and kidneys suffered most, and estrogen levels more than doubled in males with the highest Roundup treatment dose.
We've been eating GMOs in some form in the United States for 15 years. So why aren't people walking around with big tumors or obvious health effects in our country? So what would translate 6 months in a rat's life to human years?
2 years of a rat is an entire life. So as tumor arise mostly by the end of the first year and within the second year. So that means at the end of the first part of the life, which is around 30 to 40. And we are surprised to see a lot of breast tumors in women within this part of the life. We don't know what they are due to. I'm not saying that everything is due to GMO, but I think that GMO could contribute to some extent to these tumors. We have the fact that Roundup can kill human cells at very low levels and even lower levels close to the levels you find in the river or in the tap water. Then you have hormonal effects, hormonal imbalance within the cells that are necessary to form the genital system, for instance.
All right, thank you very much. In rounding up, I'm going to read from a book here. It's called GMOs, Consumerism and the Global Politics of Biotechnology. I'm going to read from this book. I'm reading from page 4. If you can display it, I'll be very happy, but I'm going to read from page 4, the last paragraph on page 4. Now, okay, let me start from the second paragraph. It says, the human calling, the calling there is C-U-L-L-I-N-G, which some scholars, like James Lovelock, deceivingly attributed to what they called care, is traceable to Thomas Malthus, his work in 1798, in which he argues that there are checks and balances to population growth emerging from difficulties of subsistence, including struggle for resources, disease, and starvation. However, these checks are far from being natural, since there is evidence that toxic substances are made and intentionally put in dietary products for the impoverished in the world to eat and die away. Substances which causes insanity, widespread infertility, organ damage, and loss of ability to engage in rational, conscious thinking are doused into the food for the impoverished to eat. It is noted about a chemical used on food crops, which is called atrazine. And this is actually where I'm going to. Atrazine is widely documented as a powerful chemical castrator that transforms male into hermaphrodites, the animal kingdom version of a metrosexual. It is undoubtedly one of the chemicals currently responsible for the mass feminization of men in modern society. Atrazine reduced the size of the larynx. We also observe very low levels of testosterone among adult males, some of which are hermaphrodites, which means they had both ovaries and testes. In certain cases, the males became homosexuals and coupled with other males, adopting effeminate behavior. Some had eggs in their testes instead of sperm. Although the United Nations and other Western states would present homosexuality as natural and therefore as a human right that children are now being taught about in schools worldwide, the above evidence shows that homosexuality is in fact manufactured in the food science laboratories of transnational biotechnology and GMO producing corporations. In this vein, it is noted that a handful of global elites within the global secret society who intend to reduce the world's population from 7 billion to 500 million use chemicals to induce homosexuality. I will stop there and I will show you can right where you are, you can go to Wikipedia, you can check Georgia Guidestones. If they can show it on the screen, they came out with 10 commandments of the new world, and the first of the 10 commandments was to reduce the world's population by 500, reduce the world's population from whatever it is to 7 billion. If these people who have this ideology to reduce the world's population begin manufacturing food for us and giving us the food to eat, you can answer the question yourself, the purpose of such meals. And in closing, final closing, because I know we have a lot of wonderful things to learn today. Now, the book I read from is I'm going to share the book with the agency, with the Research Institute, so you can always download it from their website, or you can download it anywhere else. In closing, I want to read something to us again. Now, first of all, we should know that several countries have begun banning the importation of genetically modified foods. We should know that. And what I referenced earlier on, I would like to read it from Georgia Guidestones, if you can have it on the screen. Number 1, it says, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Number 2, guide reproduction wisely. It was said there. Now, the reason we're having this is not to demonize genetically modified foods, but to create a balance of knowledge and a sense of, okay, everybody should have a choice. Is this what I want? You know, just like the Holy Bible says, I've said before you life and death. Some people may decide this is what they want. But everybody should have this knowledge so that you know what you're eating and know the implications of what you're eating. You heard the researcher said himself, in his research on genetically modified foods, it accelerated cancer. And of course, you can begin to find the chemical spoken earlier on, atrazine, is found in many of the pesticides used to enhance the growth of genetically modified crops. So on this note, I would like to round up here and hand over the microphone to our other speakers to shed more light on the topic and the concerns that we have with genetically modified crops. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Please, a round of applause for Mr. Segun Adebayo.